Good evening and thank you so much for joining us. I'm Felicia Lawrence. Scott is on assignment tonight. Well, we've got a lot to get to tonight, including primary election results. But first, Hoosiers joined nationwide protests over federal abortion protections. Look at all the crowds gathering in cities across the country today. It's all in response to that leaked draft opinion from the Supreme Court suggesting an overturn of Roe v. Wade is likely. Tonight, we take a closer look at what this draft opinion would do to abortion rights across the country. And we dig into what's likely to happen with Indiana law if protections are overturned. Plus, a mother shares how her decision to get an abortion changed her family's future. But first, Rachel Krause shares the heated debate among Hoosiers today outside the federal courthouse.
Just one day after a leaked document from the Supreme Court came out indicating Roe v. Wade could be overturned, now protests are sparking around the country, including right here in downtown Indy.
My body, my choice! My body, my choice!
A chorus of voices echoed around the federal courthouse for hours.
Pro-life is pro-woman! Pro-life is pro-woman!
With the future of constitutionally protected abortion rights now up in the air. Both sides anxiously waiting to see the Supreme Court's next move. Dr. Maya Bass protested with a group of physicians, saying as a doctor offering full-spectrum family care, including abortions, she believes this fight is about protecting women's health care.
We know that abortion care is important to patient safety and that it is a safe and legal procedure. We know that if there are bans on abortion, people will still get abortions. They just won't have access, and they'll increase the worst outcomes.
A few feet away, pro-life protesters used megaphones to be heard over the crowd of pro-choice protesters.
Oh, no, we don't need Roe!
Titus Folks drove up from Bloomington to share his thoughts.
But these people don't represent Indiana. Indiana has mostly conservative people who are pro-life by every polling metric. Most of the conservatives there are at the polls voting. And so we know we have a pro-life state that will be pro-life when Roe v. Wade is decided and we can actually ban abortion in Indiana.
He's hoping to see Roe v. Wade overturned for good.
So abortion is murder. It kills a human being. We have a Roe v. Wade decision where we will save lives in Indiana, and states will decide for themselves how they will treat that law. And I mean, this is an exciting opportunity to save human lives.
Dr. Bass says abortion is a personal decision, one that should be left to the patient and their doctor.
No one else should have any say in it. Politicians do not have any medical expertise. They should not have a say in this. They should get out of my patients' rooms and let my patients and me and their healthcare provider make this decision.
Both sides now watching and waiting to see what the high court will do.
Well, a new poll from the Washington Post and ABC News found 70% of Americans think the decision on abortion should be left to a woman and her doctor, while 24% believe it should be regulated by law. Here in Indiana, it's a decision thousands of women make every year.
Tonight, our Emily Longnecker shares one woman's story about how this procedure changed her life forever.
We spoke with a woman who's been outspoken in the past about her decision to have an abortion almost 9 years ago. She called the future terrifying for young women in this country if the now constitutionally protected right to an abortion is overturned and placed in the hands of the states.
Almost 9 years ago, Victoria Barrett and her husband made a choice.
That process was, I think, not a typical abortion in that we did have a choice, but the choices we had were not typical.
The couple learned early on in Victoria's first pregnancy the baby she was carrying would likely not make it to term because of a chromosomal abnormality.
It wasn't a choice between have a child and not have a child. It was a choice between have an abortion or have a potentially dangerous and potentially fertility destroying miscarriage at some point in the coming months.
So just shy of 16 weeks, Victoria had an abortion. 3 months later, she was pregnant with her oldest son, Finn. 16 months later came Ewan.
I know without doubt that if we hadn't chosen the abortion, that there wouldn't be two little boys who live in this house with me.
Now she wonders what women who find themselves in similar circumstances will do if the right to an abortion is overturned.
We're pretty confident that it will be outlawed here. So the best bet for somebody in my circumstance would be to go probably to Chicago.
But what happens if someone can't afford that kind of trip?
But the people who are going to be most impacted are going to be low-income women, poor women who may not have the means to travel in order to get access to abortion.
Professor India Thusi with IU's Maurer School of Law says she read the draft opinion and says its argument that privacy isn't a part of liberty guaranteed by the Constitution could eventually impact other rights.
So it's really an opening to undermine our right to privacy, our right to engage in things like obtain contraception, that states will be able to restrict those rights. And so it's a very scary opinion.
We are going to lose so much more than the ability to have an abortion.
A protected right Victoria Barrett had access to, one she believes others should as well, no matter the reason behind their choice.
My story is an extreme circumstance where, it didn't feel like a choice. But I believe in choice pretty unconditionally. And I think that pregnancy and parenthood are deeply personal.
Let's take a second now to break down what we know so far about this draft opinion. The Supreme Court today confirmed it is real and was written back in February by Justice Alito. The court says this draft does not represent a final decision or the final position of any justice in the case. Also worth noting, if this draft opinion were published as is, it wouldn't completely overturn abortion rights. What it would do is eliminate federal protections, essentially letting each state decide for itself what is legal and what's not.
Right now, 16 states plus the District of Columbia already have laws in place protecting abortion regardless of the SCOTUS ruling. That leaves 35 states up in the air, including Indiana. And an analysis by the Associated Press classified our state as likely to ban abortion if Roe v. Wade is overturned. Tonight, our Madison Stacy looks into past efforts across Indiana to restrict or limit abortion procedures.
Experts say Hoosiers could expect an abortion ban by summertime if the Supreme Court moves through with overturning Roe v. Wade. Restrictions on abortion include mandated counseling prior to procedures, waiting periods, requiring women to have 2 separate visits before they can have their abortion, and forced ultrasounds 18 hours before procedure. Indiana was one of 6 states that moved and failed to pass a measure that would ban abortions for nearly all circumstances in 2011. Legislators introduced another abortion ban in 2018, but it failed as well. In 2019, Indiana banned the D&E procedure, and in 2021, women were required to undergo an ultrasound 18 hours ahead of an abortion.
As far as any future restrictions on abortion, state lawmakers already have a request into the governor's office. Earlier this spring, 100 Republicans sent Governor Holcomb a letter asking him to call a special session if Roe v. Wade is overturned. But the governor stayed pretty tight-lipped on any potential plans so far. He says he's waiting to review a final decision from the Supreme Court instead of a leaked draft opinion.
Now again, we aren't expecting the Supreme Court to issue a final ruling on abortion protections until late June, early July. But Democrats in D.C. are already trying to find ways to fight a potential overturn of Roe v. Wade. Options are limited, though, without the Senate votes needed to pass any law securing abortion rights or change Senate rules. Coming up in just a few minutes, our Verify team looks at whether or not Senate action could actually supersede any decision by the Supreme Court. But for now, we'll wrap up our big story coverage.